And so my time working as a prosecuting attorney in the circuit court, not only with the treatment court, but also with the criminal trials that would go on in that time, really inspired me to want to continue in that court.
Hello and welcome to the Gain3D Business Development Marketing Podcast. On this week's episode, we have special guest Matthew Buehler. He is currently campaigning for Circuit Court Judge for Kosciusko County. In this episode, we discuss how the justice system in Kosciusko County has been empowered. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here, Rory. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Matt Buehler. I actually was born in Illinois, a small town in Illinois, and moved here to Warsaw with my family when I was 11. And I have lived here in Warsaw ever since. Grew up in Winona Lake, and then later on just outside of Winona Lake in Warsaw. Graduated from Warsaw High School in 1996, and then worked and lived here with my family. Like I say, ever since then. And now I am an attorney here in Warsaw. I work for the prosecuting attorney's office, and I have announced my candidacy for the Kosciusko County Circuit Court Judge, and am beginning that campaign, really as we speak.
All right, so announced your candidacy.
Yes.
And for judge.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your family.
Sure, absolutely. I married my high school sweetheart, Jennifer. We've been married now for 20 years. I've lived here in Warsaw that time. We also have 3 sons. They are aged 15, 11, and 5. And so they all attend Warsaw schools in grades 9, 5, and kindergarten. And the 3 boys, they love sports. They love Star Wars. They just really kind of enjoy being boys at this point in their lives.
Yeah, and so you live in the Warsaw district area, right?
Yes.
So not a far travel for you to work.
No, not at all.
Every day.
From my front door to my office at the Kosciusko County Justice Building is about a 4-minute trip if I catch all the stoplights right.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your journey as a lawyer?
Sure, of course. I'd be happy to. I graduated from Valparaiso Law School in 2013. And since that time, my first job out of law school was working for attorney David Colby here in Warsaw. And I worked for him as an associate attorney for about the first 3 years. And really, he gave me an opportunity to dip my toe into various kinds of law. There are many different kinds of law practice, and my favorite, I developed liking very early for criminal work, and did much public defender work out of the various courts here in Kosciusko County. And then after about 3 years with Mr. Colby doing family law, that criminal law that I spoke of, some civil litigation, I was offered an opportunity, as an associate attorney with Reed and Earhart, another long-established firm here in Warsaw. Mm-hmm. And I started working for them for about 4 years. I was with them. And then after doing the same kinds of things, except at this time I had the opportunity with Reed and Earhart to work as a public defender in the major felony courts. So I had a number of high-level felony criminal cases that were pending at any given time, representing criminal defendants here in the justice system in Kosciusko County. Following my time at Reed and Earhart, I accepted a position with the Kosciusko County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, where I have been since 2019. So I believe I'm beginning or have just begun year 5 with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. During my time with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, my first assignment initially was to the Kosciusko County Circuit Court, where I am now seeking to run for judge.
So what does the circuit court handle then?
Sure. The main thrust of the circuit court is to handle drug-related felonies.
Okay.
And it is also the supervising court for the Kosciusko County Drug Treatment Court. In addition, other types of felonies are filed in the circuit court as well. Batteries, thefts, burglaries, those kinds of things are filed there as well. But that's their criminal docket. But the main thrust of the criminal docket in circuit court is the drug-related felonies and to supervise the treatment court. In addition to the criminal docket, there's also civil litigation that happens in the Kosciusko Circuit Court. There's some family law, a number of personal injury type cases, some estates, those types of things. So it has a diverse docket. But the main focus, well, I wouldn't say main focus of the court, but is that the criminal aspect of it.
So is that kind of what's inspired you then to stay in this, the background in criminal defense and then prosecution? You want to, I mean, is that what has inspired you? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Absolutely. No, that really has. When my time working in the circuit court as a deputy prosecutor, I got to work very, very closely with the presiding judge now, Judge Michael Reed. And I also got to work very, very closely with the treatment court itself, the treatment providers, also as the prosecuting attorney's representative to the circuit court. I had a big role in looking to screening candidates, trying to find people that would be the right type of candidates for the Kosciusko treatment court. And in my time there, that was really when I made the decision that if this was an opportunity that ever presented itself, that it would definitely be something that I was interested in. And then about 3 to 4 years ago, Mike Reed started suggesting that he was not going to seek another term, which is appropriate given that he's reaching near retirement age. And so at that time,
so he's the son of original Judge Reed.
No, actually, no relation to those two.
Oh, okay.
Mike Reed's father is Max Reed, who recently passed. Was also an attorney here in Warsaw for years and years and years. The judge before Mike Reed was Rex Reed, which strangely enough, no
I think that's
relation.
the one that I dealt with.
And so my time working as a prosecuting attorney in the circuit court, not only with the treatment court, but also with the criminal trials that would go on in that time, really inspired me to want to continue in that court. My current assignment is not in the circuit court. It's in another court right now. It's in Superior Court Number 2 under Judge Tory Bauer. And I work hand in hand with him, and it is a different docket, but is almost exclusively criminal docket in that court. And so it gives me an opportunity to work on many, many different other kinds of cases. That is the misdemeanor filing court, misdemeanor, and I would say low-level felonies, level 5, level 6 felonies. And so there are far more cases that are filed in that court than any other. However, they're not as time-consuming for the court's time or the state of Indiana's time because they are, B misdemeanors, C misdemeanors. They're lower-level crimes. Say again?
Is it typically plea deals in that?
Most cases
taking a misdemeanor to the actual trial would be expensive, and
they do happen.
I think you would have to have like a surety that you were in the right.
Well,
I think
they
was
do
going to
happen.
take it to court, and like I did not do this.
Strangely enough, the misdemeanor courts they do have criminal trials from time to time. I've done a number of them since I've been there, and there's really two types of trials when you're talking about a criminal trial. One is you can have a jury trial where you try that case to a group of your peers. Now, in misdemeanor court or for a low-level felony, it's 6 people on a jury. It's only 6. When you get to a level 5 and above, it becomes a 12-man jury, and then obviously it's far more time-consuming, far more, and those are reserved for the serious crimes. However, you can also, whether it be a murder or a driving without a license, you can ask the court for a trial to the court, where the judge not only makes determinations about what evidence comes in, how the trial itself is run, but also ultimately makes the decision about guilt or innocence, referred to commonly as a bench trial, because you're trying the case to the bench and not to the jury box.
I've heard of that on Law and Order.
Yes.
They use that one a lot. A bench trial. I didn't know what it was, though. I mean, you're watching the show. It's entertainment, not really trying to become a lawyer watching it myself.
Well, I will say the Law and Order they do a nice job when they talk about rules of evidence. A lot of times there's some educational stuff to be found in there, but where I think most people would get confused is that they truly believe that a case is a crime is committed, investigated, suspect found, suspect tried, suspect convicted, all within
an hour,
2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's not a realistic time frame.
like
for any
24.
crime. Correct.
That was the most unrealistic. He got across L.A. in that commercial break. No,
Yeah.
he didn't.
So
no,
it
he
is
didn't. It took the whole hour.
Yeah, it would have taken 5 episodes for him for him to get from Long Beach to
San Diego.
yeah. So it's the criminal trials, the criminal part of the court is obviously the thing that fascinates me the most. I have spent a tremendous amount of time in my current position and in my former position as a defense attorney preparing trials, actually trying cases. I've tried murder cases. I've tried rape cases. I was the first, actually, our office, and as I was lead counsel on it, we were one of the very first trials and convictions for a very new crime here in the state of Indiana, something called dealing causing death. And the legislature a few years ago enacted a law that if someone sold or provided a controlled substance to another person, and that person then died of what is commonly referred to as an overdose, and as the medical professionals would call it, acute drug intoxication. If someone were to perish from using that substance, that person who provided the substance can be guilty of the offense, what's called dealing causing death. And that is a level 1 felony, which is the most serious crime that there is in the state of Indiana.
Minimum
20 to 40 is actually the range on that. And so my office and me as lead counsel, we tried a case that was one of the very first ones in Indiana to go to jury. And I think if I'm correct, and I believe I am, the only one that was before us that was tried to jury was sent back on appeal, and they ultimately pled that one. And so I believe our case was the first one to be tried to jury, upheld on appeal, and now serving the conviction for the trial itself. That was a case where some drugs were smuggled into the jail here in Kosciusko County. And drugs here in Kosciusko County are a problem for us as they are for every community. The fentanyl, the methamphetamine, the heroin has always been, they've always been issues. But in this day and age, they're becoming more powerful. People think they're buying pharmaceuticals, and that's not what they're getting.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that at last count, we were up to, in 2023, and I'd have to check with the coroner's office, we had, I believe, upwards of 10 to 15 that were just drug-related deaths, people that, in common parlance, just overdosed on drugs. And so in reaction to that, the legislature passed this law.
Yeah, and I mean, 10 in just one of 92 counties, and we're one of the smaller counties. So
yeah, and it's a problem.
I could see it being a major problem in Hamilton and Gary.
Sure, it's a problem for us. It's a problem for all of our neighboring counties. It's a problem for our neighboring states. It's a problem everywhere. And so that is one of the things that has really kind of inspired me to want to be a part of and really preside over the treatment court. Is for years and years, the formula was always the same. It was always find people using drugs, charge them with the crimes, lock them up, and then when they get out, hope that jail fixed it for them.
Yeah.
And that clearly was not having the necessary effect. I don't think there's anybody around that would say that's a good formula anymore.
Yeah. Jail initially was to keep the violent criminals out of society so that they couldn't harm, the nonviolent members of society. But, and then I feel like it kind of got mixed in where the drugs in the 80s definitely perpetuated a lot of violence. And so
absolutely,
I can see where, the mindset initially was, well, it's just an orange of a different color, so let's put them together all in the same place. But a lot of the users themselves aren't necessarily violent.
Almost, and I say, you always take every case as it comes along, but I would say for the most part, and that is the real reason for the development behind the treatment court, is that if everybody's heard the saying, if you just you do the same thing over and over again and you get the same results, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And so we were continuing as a society to lock people up and charge them with crimes, and then we would turn them loose, and lo and behold, jail didn't cure them of their drug addiction.
Hey, I'll see you back in 6 months.
And so it was an endless cycle of people going in and people coming out, and then
it's a teach a man to fish,
correct,
type of thing. So
and so what I have really grown to admire about not only our treatment, well, I would say particularly our treatment court, but others as well, both within the state of Indiana and around the United States, is that it's a different model. And the model is this: it is to try to create alternative sentences for drug users, for addicted offenders. And I say addicted offenders not necessarily because the crimes for all of these offenders are always drug crimes. They're oftentimes drug related. As I'm sure you can imagine, most offenders that are in the throes of an active opiate addiction are not working 9-to-5 jobs.
Yeah.
And there needs to be, you are in the throes of an addiction. You're not thinking straight. You're doing things that you ought not be doing in order to not only continue to feed your addiction, but also to feed yourself and to try it. And so a lot of the crimes that you see will often be theft. And then when they're charged and arrested with a theft, lo and behold, they have methamphetamine on their possession. So you end up with a lot of offenders that have multiple types of crimes. And so the drug court and the treatment court here in Kosciusko County has been designed specifically to provide alternative sentences to addicted offenders.
Okay.
And so the program in and of itself will often take somewhere between 9 months and 2 years. And in a nutshell, the way the program works is someone will plead guilty to the crimes with which they've been charged. And then after they've pled guilty, they are in intense rehabilitative treatment. They're meeting with counselors every week. Oftentimes they're required to stay at residential treatment. We have wonderful, wonderful programs here in the county. They're getting more and more resources available to them all the time. There is Serenity House, which is located here in Kosciusko County. We're big partners with them.
Yep.
Fellowship Missions also has a wonderful program for folks that just don't have anywhere to go. And as I'm sure it makes sense, you have a lot of these offenders who don't have necessarily a family to go live with, right? I mean, either they've burned all the bridges with their family and they've been through the I'm an addict and no, I'm not, and now I'm better. And they've been through it enough times that they're just not interested. Or in the alternative, you have a lot of offenders that just didn't have a great family life to begin with, or family members that they would go and live with are also in active addiction.
Yeah.
And so there's housing alternatives that have become available. They meet the offenders and the participants in the drug court. They meet with folks from Bowen Center on a very regular basis. They meet with their case managers through the drug court, their probation officers, and it's a real collaborative effort among the service providers to work hand in hand and closely with the court. But the thing that inspires me most to seek this office has been that at every conference I've attended when it talks about the treatment court, in every drug-related treatment court, that the judge is almost always thought of as the one person that can really make a difference. And I don't say that to diminish anything that the service providers do, because honestly, there's nothing I can do to help treat someone's addiction. I don't have the education. I don't have the background to do it. But most of the people that you talk to about treatment courts will tell you that when you are in a position of presiding over the treatment court, you can really have a true influence on outcomes for offenders. You can truly inspire them to do great things, and you also, I mean, if done poorly, can inspire them to not achieve and end up right back in the cycle again. And I don't mean to suggest that every offender that goes through our drug treatment court is, nobody likes to use the word cured, right? Because you're always an addict. Right? If you're an addict, you're always an addict. It's just today I'm not going to use, and then after you get through today, tomorrow I'm not going to use, and you do that one day at a time. But the judge is so uniquely positioned to exercise, good judgment, good advice, and and quite frankly, punish when necessary.
Yep.
When offenders aren't living up to their end of the bargain. So ultimately, when an offender comes in, they have a very strict set of rules that they're obligated to abide by during their time in the treatment court. And it is the case managers and the providers that are responsible for reporting the progress of every offender back to the court. And then the court, meaning the judge. And the judge is then left to make decisions about where to continue to steer these people. Do they need a change in their service plans? Do they need to be given a reward for their excellence? Do they need to be moved on to a lower level of supervision? All those decisions, I mean, obviously with the feedback and input of all the important participants on the drug court team, but ultimately, the old saying, the buck stops here. And that's where the judge has such a profound influence. The example that's often spoke about during the drug court conferences is it's almost like a parent and a child. You have a child who, they're going to be punished by their parent or they're going to be rewarded by their parent. There is nothing more influential than that. You can have a service provider that can tell somebody something over and over and over again, and sometimes it just doesn't get through. But oftentimes, the judge has the ability and the power to be able to really get that message across.
That's that. I would call it that authority bias. So as a judge, sitting up on the dais, is that what it's called?
Well, I don't know. I've never heard dais I haven't heard that term before. Well, I mean, I've heard it before, but not in that context. Bench.
Sitting up on the bench.
They sit on the bench.
Has that authority then. And so, there's cognitive biases that
Sure.
the brain employs to reduce calorie usage over time. And one of them is just listen to the authority.
Sure.
And so that, that alone, I think, is a definite percentage factor in that.
And that is not by accident that the bench in a courtroom is seated above and elevated above everything else. That's exactly why it's designed that way.
So, are you happy or sad that we're not in Britain and you don't have to wear the wig then when you sit up on the bench?
There's some.
Might you do it just
if
for
anything
Halloween
else,
or
if
something?
anything else, I probably should have started with a wig of some kind a long time ago. But no, there's definitely some things that differ between the British system and the American system that are fascinating. Good or for better or for worse. I could probably do without the wigs. I don't know that's really
a little itchy.
That's a little too formal even for me.
But that's probably why the wig was used as part of that authority.
Sure.
It also imparts an air of age. Then, with everyone wearing a gray wig, you're not really sure how old the person is.
Sure.
Sitting under the wig, kind of thing. So that's what made me think of it, and not necessarily that.
Yeah, I don't think I have to worry about the gray too much. I think the little bit of hair that I do have remaining is mostly gray anyway.
As a judge, will you have a team working for you, or are you all alone up there on the stage?
Well, when you're a judge, you have a staff that you rely on tremendously. For every judge in Kosciusko County, and I'd have to probably do a little bit of math, but I think every judge has 3 staff members that work directly for them. So obviously you're not alone. There's a tremendous amount of work that gets processed through each and every court. So every judge relies very, very heavily on their court reporter, who is usually on the bench next to them, and relies very heavily on the other staff that is responsible for, making sure that all of the orders are proper and appropriate before they're released. And so a judge, for as much as, and I actually had somebody tell me this, that, you spend a lot of time alone as a judge, but you're not doing the job alone by any stretch. And the staff of the Circuit and Superior Court 1 that is already in place under Judges Mike Reed and Karen McGrath, fantastic professional staff, super efficient. And I don't know that there's too many courts around that wouldn't be jealous of the staff that those two have put together.
That's great. So is this like the final goal of your career is to then be a judge on this seat? Or
Yeah, if I were to be fortunate enough, and the voters of Kosciusko County were thought enough of me to give me the confidence to put their confidence in me to do this job, a judge serves a 6-year term.
okay,
And so I would serve, obviously, the 6-year term, and then I would seek reelection twice, would be my plan. So that would get me through to retirement age if I were, fortunate enough and were able to, get that election and that confidence from the voters of Kosciusko County. I would serve for the next 18 years, and that would be my final job.
Okay.
So yeah, that has always been kind of my career goal, is to get to this point. It's close.
Yep.
And so the idea that I would be, interviewing, I suppose, with the voters of Kosciusko County for what I ultimately hope will be my last gig is kind of exciting. It really is. It's not uncommon for attorneys to move around a lot until they kind of start their own firm and get involved and, kind of entrenched in the community. And I feel like I've been entrenched in the community itself for a long time. But, in the 11 years that I've been practicing, I have had, 3 different positions, and this would be the last one. If given that confidence by the voters of Kosciusko County, this would be if I had my preference, this would be the last job I ever had.
And so in this election, it is determined by the voters this time because you do have an opponent.
I do have an opponent.
There's another candidate running.
His name is Jack Birch. Jack is a colleague of mine. I've known him since I began practice. I like Jack very much. He's a good friend. He's a good lawyer. And I am, when he and I have obviously had a discussion, and I'm excited for these next few months, and we'll give the voters an opportunity to make a selection.
Yeah. So, obviously you've talked high praise of the alternative candidate for the Republican ticket, but what sets you apart from Jack Birch?
Sure, and that's a great question. Jack is without doubt has more experience than I do. Jack, very, very fortunately for him, I'm sure he would tell you, probably knew what he wanted to do from a very young age. And so immediately after he finished his undergraduate, went directly to law school and began practicing immediately as soon as he finished. Jack is also 10 years older than I am. And so, I, on the other hand, after I finished my undergraduate, I did not go to law school right away. I was not a traditional student. I was married and had a child at that time. So rather than most people, and I would say, would graduate law school when they're about 25 or 26.
Yeah.
I was 35 when I graduated law school. So in addition to, Jack having 10 years head start on me as far as birthday, he also had a 10-year head start on me from being able to go right to law school out of there. So I'm not going to be able to match him as far as years of experience. But what I do have, and where I truly feel like I have an advantage that the voters should consider, is that I do have what I believe to be the right experience when it comes to this job.
Yeah, for this particular court.
For this particular court. And as I say, where I am strongest is my passion and drive to continue the great work that the treatment court has done. And I have been intimately involved in that, whereas, Jack has not. And in addition, I have tried countless criminal cases to jury. As I mentioned earlier, I've tried rapes, I've tried murders,
Yep.
I've tried countless drug possessions and drug dealings. I have tried, simple common batteries. I think that if you stack my trial experience up against Jack's, you're going to find that in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've done far, far more than he has during his 30 years. And, that's not to say that, that's a bad thing. Perhaps he's practiced or focused his practice in a different way. But I think for this particular court and this particular assignment, that I think I have the right experience. Even though I don't have the same amount, I have the right experience for this job.
What exactly is the purview of a judge during trial? Like, I know, from TV that they handle objections, but you also decide what evidence comes into court and can be shown before the jury. So, just give me kind of a
Sure.
a small breakdown.
Yeah, sure. The most simple analogy that is often used is that you have a courtroom where you have one of the attorneys is hitting, another guy's pitching, and the judge is calling balls and strikes.
Okay.
Right. There's rules that have to be followed in the courtroom. There's rules that dictate how evidence can be presented, what type of evidence can be heard by the jury, all of those things. And it's the judge's job to make those decisions when it comes to a trial. He is the umpire. And if you have, if you have good attorneys on both sides that are trying a good case, that makes a judge's life, as easy as it can be. And what I mean by that is it's easy to call balls and strikes when you have, attorneys that are presenting their case in the appropriate way.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, while I make it sound simple, it's also difficult in that, some of them are very easy decisions, right? I mean, as with baseball, right? Sometimes you're going to have a ball that's 6 feet off the plate and bounces in the dirt. That's an easy decision.
Yeah.
But there's really close calls too. And those close calls are usually where the rubber meets the road, where if this particular piece of evidence comes in, the jury may very well find one way or another. And so it's important to not only have a knowledge and understanding of those rules where you can make those decisions quickly and efficiently, but it's also important to have had the experience of trying those cases to be able to make decisions, be able to draw on your knowledge and your experience to be able to make those decisions on the spot.
Yep.
So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying a judge's job is to control the rules in the courtroom and control what evidence actually gets in to the record. And a judge also has to have, to be able to separate things in his mind. As we talked about a little earlier, the difference between a bench trial and a jury trial. A judge also has to be able to separate the fact that I've heard some evidence now, but I'm ruling it inadmissible. I cannot allow myself to consider that evidence in making my decision. And so it's important to have, a terrific filter to be able to really get down to, all right, what matters here? What really matters here? And not get lost in the theatrics of the courtroom sometimes.
Yeah, like I was thinking, what would you do if a Matthew McConaughey Lincoln lawyer showed up?
Right. That
would probably stress the job as a judge. I would think.
It's you've got to look past, like I say, a lot of the theatrics, right? It's you've got to be able to look beyond that and really see what the evidence is supposed to be. Great lawyers present evidence in all kinds of different ways. And part of your job as an attorney, as an advocate, whether it be for the state of Indiana, for a criminal defendant, whether you're an attorney in a divorce case or an estate case or a land use case or whatever the case may be, the way you present evidence sometimes can be very convincing. But at the end of the day, it's the judge's job to determine, all right, that was a wonderful presentation. What did you really tell me?
Yeah.
Right. And how is that important?
Thank you for joining Matt and I on today's discussion as we talked about his campaign for Circuit Court Judge in Kosciusko County. If you're interested in accelerating your online presence, please reach out to sales@gain3d.net and we can help set up a strategy session and determine the best path forward for your business marketing campaign. Thank you.